Hi there. If you've just signed up for the Astro Sacred Geometry Ritual, this video is a short introduction and sort of some guidelines before we jump into it. I've also emailed this to you. I'm actually just going to read from the document that you have been emailed, because I know some people prefer video over reading. But I do highly recommend that you read it either way. But I'm just going to sort of go over the bullet points here. So you know what you're getting into, because this is serious business. This is not just fooling around. This is moving energy, and your energy, and this is changing the trajectory of your life. This is some real serious business. So if you're not really prepared, if you're not really grounded, it could be a disaster for you. And so let's go over these sort of bullet points, and please do read this when you can before we get into the actual sessions and whatnot. Yeah, you need a spiritual practice. Practice such as meditation or prayer, for example, help us stay grounded. You can have all the spiritual, connection you want, but you're in a body, a physical body, and if you cannot translate your spiritual learning, your spiritual awareness into actually showing up in the way you talk and walk through the world, the way you interact with people and interact with life itself, you're not going to be successful at anything, pretty much, including the Astro Sacred Geometry Ritual. You really got to have a firm grasp on the physical, because that's the whole game here. Spirit is expressing through you in the material world, and so you've got to stay grounded in order for that expression to take hold, to really count, for it to really matter in the world of matter. So yeah, it doesn't matter what your spiritual practice is. I mentioned meditation and prayer because they are the two most common, but you can do things your own way. But as long as you do have a daily practice, it's going to help you return back to center when you get knocked off, when you get bounced around by life, and we all get bounced around by life sooner or later. Our spiritual practice is what helps us come back to center. And this is some big energy we're about to move. So you might get knocked off center. I think it can be wonderful eventually, but some people, if you're a little out of balance to begin with, this is going to throw you further off balance. And so getting on to a spiritual practice beforehand and staying with it is key to success with this. Along those same lines, it's good to have a team. Like, do you have friends? Do you have family that you can talk to, that you can count on, that can be there for you, that you can call up in the middle of the night if you're going through a stressful period? This isn't like a magic pill and you just like, boom, you do this one time and your whole life has changed forever. This is a process that's being initiated by the ritual. And it's like the rocket ships when they launch at Cape Kennedy. They go up. There's this huge burst of energy at the beginning, and then they got to have some guidance control, or they're going to flop over. Well, the ritual is like that huge burst of energy to get you moving in the right direction, but you still need to maintain your sanity and your guidance, and so your spiritual practice is a big part of that. Your team is going to be necessary also. You've got to have someone you can talk to. We actually do have surrogate team members. If you have no one that you can talk to, no one that wants to listen to you, we can set you up with a ritual sort of stand-in for the weeks after the ritual takes place, someone you can check in with and can offer you encouragement and whatnot. So that'll be part of the offering as we go through the process. You'll find contact information for those if you need. The down now to like the nuts and bolts of the ritual and why you're having a ritual in the first place. Basically, everyone has internal conflict. Sometimes your thinking part doesn't agree with your feeling part, or sometimes your wild, exuberant, adventurous part is in conflict with your thinking part, or conflict with the part that wants to stay safe and secure. Or there's multiple, in fact, infinite ways that conflict can manifest, and that's what makes being human so very interesting. And my job as an astrologer is so fulfilling, is because I see it all. I see things I never dreamed I would see before when I look at someone's astrological chart. So that's what happens. At the very beginning, I take a look at your chart while we're talking, and you're explaining this area of life that you want to see improvement in. And I'm seeing that reflected in your chart. And typically, I will be able to identify 2 planets, sometimes 3 or more, but generally 2 planets that you were born with them in sort of this conflicted arrangement. If you know much about astrology, you know we call these squares. Sometimes it can be in opposition, but generally speaking, the squares are going to create the most internal conflict, and they're also going to provide the greatest amount of potential breakthrough in energy, because the bigger they come, the harder they fall, right? So these squares not only are conflicted, but they're generating energy. And so when we're able to express that conflict at a higher level, then it becomes energy that we can use. So that's what we do to start this process with. You and I will talk. I'll look at your chart. I'll identify these 2 planets, and then I will calculate a moment in time when these 2 planets will be lined up in a supportive way, where they can actually hear each other. I guess I should have mentioned the outset, the one of the very first things we do, perhaps even before the consultation, is you're part of you get to participate or have a private 2-hour class with me. My class called Chakras, Mythology, and Astrological Symbolism really sets the tone for you to understand that the planets in your chart have the same names as the gods and goddesses in mythology, because they are representative of the same thing, which is the internal parts of you. Instead of projecting our problems or our power onto a god or goddess outside of us, mythology helps us recognize that the stories are about people outside of us, but it's really about what's going on inside of us. So that's what the class does at the beginning. We'll have this 2-hour class, and we'll do that online, of course, unless you happen to be in my town, and or I happen to be in your town. I do travel quite a bit. Anyway, we do the class. We identify these 2 planets or these 2 goddesses that don't like each other on some level, and we find a time, using my calculations for timing, using the sacred geometry. We'll talk about that in a sec. The moment when these 2 characters can actually speak to one another, they're open to hearing what the other has to say. And that's the moment when we time your ritual, so that you have as much support as you can to achieve the breakthrough you seek. Now, the sacred geometry part, if you're familiar a tiny bit with astrology, you know that we're talking about trines, triangles, squares, oppositions. These are all geometric shapes, but they're 2-dimensional geometry. They're flat geometry, just like your birth chart is on a flat piece of paper or on a flat computer screen. And when we employ sacred geometry, it's sort of like a Fibonacci spiral. It takes your chart up off of the flat piece of paper and spirals it up to a higher level, basically taking your conflict, these two planets that are squaring each other, and leveling them up to a higher level so that you can experience and express their energy from a different level. It's really, I think it's the most obvious and best way to really have a breakthrough moment. Instead of staying stuck down here at the level at which the problem was created, we must rise up to a higher level, raise your consciousness. That's what we're doing. And the results I've had so far have been really, really amazing. I don't know why other astrologers don't employ sacred geometry. But then again, I don't know why other astrologers don't equate chakras with planets like they did 400 years ago. I don't know if you've seen the cover of my book. If you've looked on my website or on my Facebook page, you will have seen this picture from 400 years ago showing the planet symbols inside of the chakras. This was ancient knowledge. I don't know why it's been forgotten or why I'm the only person who's really made the reconnection, but there you have it. You're getting a special way of looking at life, a special way of looking at astrology, a unique way of applying astrology that I haven't come across anyone professionally in my travels who's doing this or who has even heard of it. So yeah, it's new, it's exciting, it's also ancient. This is nothing I've made up, believe me. Astrology is considered to be the oldest art and science there is. So yeah, we're combining ancient wisdom, sacred geometry, ancient wisdom in terms of astrology, and just basic psychological tenets. Like there are parts of your psyche that don't get along with each other. We're combining this all together. We get it all ready, and then the exciting part, when you actually perform your ritual, you will be partnered with what I call a ritual guide. I have, at this point, a handful of women who are professional priestesses or ritualists. They are experienced, they're studied and experienced in conducting ritual for themselves and others. And so what you will do after we have our consultation, we'll have a brief sort of transition period where you and I and your ritual guide will converse, and we'll compare notes. We'll talk a bit, and then I'll hand you over to your ritual guide, who will take a look at your situation through her eyes and just make recommendations for what you can do for your ritual. For example, some people will meditate, some will dance, some will sing, some will drum, some will burn incense, some will burn candles, some will draw a card from the tarot deck. There are infinite number of ways in which to conduct your ritual. So the ritual guide will have ideas for you. You can involve fire. You can involve the four elements. There's like I said, there's tons and tons of ways. That's not my area of specialty. I'm the astrologer. That's why I partner with someone who knows what they're doing when it comes to astrology. So if you haven't already, you'll see on the website, you get to pick whichever ritual guide you wish to work with. It's your choice to make. The ritual guide will then consult with you remotely, and in some cases, if you're close enough, and ideally one day we'll have a ritual guide in every state in America and every country in the world, so there will always be someone nearby that can actually come to you if you desire to facilitate the ritual, to be there in person at that moment to guide you. And boy, it's really, really powerful sometimes to have an outside influence who's got her own strong connection with spirit and is bringing that through and directing it at you. So yeah, you have that option as well. And boom, there you go. You've done your ritual, and then you start to feel and experience life on a different level. And then, of course, I mentioned the daily practice. You know, you gotta keep at it. You gotta keep it in your mind as your world changes on the outside. You gotta remember what's going on and why you did the ritual in the first place. You ever heard about backsliding? Well, that's what we're talking about. We don't want to be backsliding, so we keep our daily practice going, and it becomes a part of our life. So eventually, it's like an instinct. It just becomes part of. Oh yeah, I'm living my life this way now. That old stuff that I used to experience, I'm not doing that anymore. It's really powerful. So. Yeah, I have a couple other notes in the notes that I'll just mention here too. One of the things that I did prior, or perhaps in the midst of my first ritual, when I did this for myself over a year ago, how I stumbled upon this. I had been doing a course on sort of deprogramming or reprogramming old unconscious belief systems. I did this, I can't even remember what it's called now. Here we go. The woman's name is Susanna Kennedy, and she has there are links in the document I've sent you. But she had this wonderful program that I went through, and basically I found her through Bruce Lipton. If you've heard of Bruce Lipton, he's one of these modern day geniuses that explains to us that how your consciousness is sort of like an iceberg, and like the part you're aware of is just the tip of the iceberg, but then underneath the water is the bulk of that iceberg, and that's the subconscious. So you have these subconscious programs running all the time. And so he says you can try to make all the changes you want, but if you're not changing the programming, you're going to keep running up into the same stuff over and over. So I highly recommend doing some work along those lines. Bruce Lipton has a page on his website where he lists, I think, over 100 different professionals who do this sort of work. Bruce Lipton doesn't do this work. He's more of the teacher, the theoretician. The people on his website that he refers you to are the practical ones that actually do the work. Susanna Kennedy's one of those, and she's the one that I resonated with, and so I took her course. You're encouraged to take somebody's course to help get you prepped, if you will, so that you don't just or sort of like thrown to the wolves. It's like, oh, I got all this new energy and I wasn't prepared for any of this, and boom, backsliding into the old ways. We really want you to be successful in making these changes a permanent fixture in your life. So doing some unconscious work. I think I put a link in here to this very short video that Bruce Lipton made about how this whole process works with the conscious and the subconscious, and how you can get sabotaged. How probably most of us have been sabotaged for most of our lives, because we've got unconscious programming running from mom, from dad, from God knows who else in all the years growing up. So this is a really powerful way to ensure that you're going to have the best opportunity to really jump forward in life. Just so you know, I am not in communication with either Susanna Kennedy or Bruce Lipton. I'm not taking money or referrals from them. They don't even know I'm making this video or I've done this. I'm telling you this because it works. I believe it works, and I believe it's crucially important for achieving the breakthrough that you want, is to have as much support as you can. And this is what worked for me. If this doesn't appeal to you, I suggest that you find what does appeal to you, because we all need support as much as we can get as we're making transformation in our lives. So there you have it. Looking forward to having a consultation with you soon. We'll take a look at your chart, and you'll tell me what area of life you're looking at, needing a transformation, wanting to see a change, and we'll go from there. So, like I said, I gave you the bullet points, but if you can, please read all this. It's only 3 or 4 pages, but it's really important stuff. 3 or 4 pages, a big fat print. So, like for the average person, it's maybe only 2 pages. But yeah, it's good stuff. It's important stuff. And then when you're ready, we will schedule your first appointment. Oh, we'll schedule your class, Chakras, Mythology, and Astrological Symbolism. And you can invite your friends to attend, on Zoom. There's no charge for them. I will take donations, or if they're interested in having a ritual of their own, of course, it works that way. But for you, the client who has already signed up for this process, that class is free. So there you have it. I'll see you soon. Let me know if you have any questions. Until then, be well.